Now, as Australia descends once again into a spiral of coronavirus case panic and the inevitable lockdowns and border closures that will follow, it's important that we all keep a sense of perspective. Now, I've already mentioned tonight the political fear porn of our leaders that's driving them towards extreme safety over rational decisions. It's seemingly driven more by the desire for re-election, at least to me, but it does forget about the feelings of the nation. Remember when the virus first hit our shores in early 2020, the message from the health professionals, it was laid out very, very clearly. We need to flatten the curve. We need to protect our hospitals from overcrowding while we can build our resources. There was no message of elimination. To learn to live with COVID-19 was to win the health battle. Well, that message has not been lost in the United Kingdom, which after months of poor decisions, as far as I'm concerned, and lockdowns, is starting to return to what can be considered post-COVID normal life. Across Europe as well, citizens are travelling, they're spending their money, and they're getting on with enjoying life. Across the weekend, well, Britain looked to be more normal once more than it has been in a very long time. Wimbledon hit its peak, and I say congratulations to Ash Barty and to Dylan Alcott as well for their wins, while almost 70,000 people gathered at Wembley Stadium in London to watch the final of the European Football Championships. And I was understanding that an estimated 13 million pints of beer were expected to be poured during those championships in pubs across the UK. But that island nation certainly hasn't eliminated the virus. It hasn't committed to indeterminately locking down its people, and the 7-day average of COVID cases, well, that still remains at 30,000 a day. And yet Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, has even declared July 19 to be the UK's Freedom Day. He knows that delay after delay will do more harm than good.
And to those who say we should delay again, the alternative to that is to open up in winter when the virus will have an advantage, or not at all this year.
As Australia seems to sink into more despondency and pessimism, a sense of optimism for the future is actually in place in the UK. We can accept that the Australian vaccine rollout has been a little bit messy so far, but what we can't forget is that life is there to be lived. Our leaders must remember that depriving people of their liberty in order to protect them from themselves is a very dangerous path to go down. I'm delighted to say that joining me to discuss the opening up of the UK is the editor of Spiked Online, Brendan O'Neill. Brendan, even though Freedom Day is a little way away, did you get a taste of it on the weekend, cheering on the English football side?
Absolutely, we did. And that was one of the great things about the Euro finals. We lost, which was very sad, and the nation is in mourning this morning. But we did get a taste of what the return of our freedoms will look like. And I think actually what football fans did, they brought Freedom Day forward by 7 days. They said, no, we're going to do it now, actually. There were mass gatherings. I didn't see hardly anyone wearing a mask, a few here and there, of course. People were drinking in pubs, on the streets. Everywhere I went, there were huge crowds of people, and they were not following social distancing, and they were not wearing masks. This was a real, this was people breaking free of lockdown. This was a real expression of pent-up emotion after 18 months of being in and out of lockdown. So ordinary people have taken the initiative. They've fast-forwarded Freedom Day a little bit, and they've said, we now need to get back to normal, free life.
Yeah, but Brendan, I celebrate that. I think it's fantastic that the British or the English are finally rejecting some of the lockdowns. But not everyone is celebrating Freedom Day, are they? There are plenty of experts that say it's the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely. There is a lot of naysaying, largely coming from the media elites and some in the expert class, who say that it's too fast, we shouldn't rush into it, we're not ready for it. And I think I see these people almost as being anti-vaxxers in a sense, because they are denying the truth before our eyes, which is that the vaccination rollout in this country, which has been hugely successful, has broken the link between COVID and death and between COVID and hospitalisations. So the Delta variant of COVID is spreading quite widely in the United Kingdom at the moment. I was in in Scotland a few days ago, and it's spreading pretty badly in Scotland. But hospitalisations and deaths are not rising significantly at all. This is nothing like the first wave and nothing like the second wave because of the vaccine rollout that's protecting the public. So we are ready to get back to normal. We have a new health secretary, Sajid Javid, who said we now have to learn to live with COVID. And I think governments across the world need to bear that in mind. This disease is going to be around for a very long time. We have to live with it.
Yeah, wise words indeed. Now, you mentioned you've got a new health secretary, but you've also got a secretary who's been under a bit of fire because the culture wars keep being introduced into the football now, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And football fans are pretty sick and tired of it. And it was a real shame because England played incredibly well in the Euros. They got all the way to the final, of course. People were cheering them on. There was a sense of national unity behind the team. But at the same time, the media elites, the woke elites, however we want to refer to them, they were injecting their politics and their prejudices into football. There was all the taking of the knee, that when fans booed the taking of the knee because they don't want virtue signalling in their sport, they were, of course, accused of being racist with no foundation whatsoever. So there was a politicization of football and a racialization of football. And that was very, very unhealthy. And I think what we're seeing today, the day after we lost in the final, we're seeing a bit of an elitist pushback against fans. Fans are now being branded as litter bugs. They've ruined the city with all their beer bottles and their rubbish. They're racist, of course. They booed the taking of the knee. They're vile. So that unity we had around the Euros has fallen apart very quickly. And I think the culture wars, sadly, is not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, weren't there some gratuitous attacks, though, on Priti Patel as well in respect to, she was cheering on England and they started getting into her about the immigration policies and the team wouldn't be as good if she'd been in charge, 1966 or something. It's just the left cannot let it go. It doesn't matter what it is. If you go against them, you are attacked as a racist and a hypocrite and everything else.
Yeah, Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, was subjected to some really horrible insults and attacks. She is the highest ranking Indian heritage politician in this country. She's incredibly successful, and yet she always gets lots of abuse from the woke mobs because she wants to control immigration. She wants to control our borders. And this idea that we should look at the England team and see a bunch of immigrants, I really dislike that idea. I think most people, when they look at the England team, they see England, they see English players. They don't care that Harry Maguire has an Irish background or Raheem Sterling has a Jamaican background. These are not things that cross our minds. We're watching the national team. We don't care where they come from or what race they are. So that's another example of the re-racialization of society by those who consider themselves progressive, who now want us to obsess over people's racial backgrounds and their national heritage, rather than bringing us together behind the national team. So I really dislike that argument too. In my view, if you're English, you're English. And I don't like the way we're encouraged to divide ourselves up into different racial, ethnic groups.
Yes, and it's extraordinary. You wrote a wonderful piece in Spiked Online about the dilemma that is facing Britain or England, because you've got people, the elites, who are enjoying football, but they no longer think it's suitable for the traditional fans. They just think somehow it should be one of their exclusive preserves. Talk us through that reasoning, Brooke, quickly.
Yeah, that's right. I'm worried that football is being colonised by the kind of socially aware middle classes and upper middle classes who want to turn it into a polite sport where we all take the knee and softly applaud when someone scores a goal and all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, but that's not what football is. Football is rowdy and boisterous, and there is booing and jeering and passion. It's a predominantly working class sport, and I don't want it to be taken over by the virtue signalers of the 21st century. So now that the Euros are behind us, we actually have a battle on our hands to protect football and its great traditions from these people who want to sanitize and politicize everything.
Yeah, it's just another thing that we all have to protect in our traditions and our heritage and keep these things open for all. Brendan O'Neill, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Corey.